Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Scott Edinburgh. I'm the founder of Personal MBA Coach, boutique admissions consultancy and tutoring service. We help applicants around the world to get into top MBA and specialized master's programs. And I am joined here today by Diana Economy, a good friend and a colleague of mine, director of full-time MBA admissions at University of Michigan, Ross School of Business. So I'll let Diana introduce herself a little bit more and maybe tell us a bit about how you first got involved with admissions.
That sounds good, Scott. Thanks for having me today. It is good to see you healthy and well, and hope your family's doing well too. I am excited to chat with you guys today and your clients. From an admissions perspective, and probably like you, when you went to get your MBA, I have my MBA from the University of Michigan, and that's not what I wrote in my essays, surprisingly enough, that I was going to go on to be the director of admissions, but this job has been incredible for me. When I was in the shoes of candidates that are looking to apply to schools, I knew a couple things to be true. One, I was really interested in the intersection of education and business. So I was pretty interested in how large public institutions like a big university functions and how they offer the most value to the students that are participating in that experience. And I was also really interested in human capital. So how do big organizations run and drive value through their people? Through that, I ended up going first into HR. I was the HR recruiting and staffing manager for the Boston Consulting Group before transitioning over to admissions. And this job is incredible because I get to meet so many awesome people, and I get to represent a school that I love and know a lot about because I'm an alum of the program as well.
Great, thank you. And yes, great to see you as well, and hope that you and yours are staying safe these days. So I feel like I know some of these answers will last for everyone. What excites you about the work that you haven't told us so far? I mean, you've given us, some items, and we always see you wearing the colors, which is super exciting. So
You
clearly
know,
that's one thing that excites you.
there's no question. I mean, I can't complain about these awesome colors. These are my favorite. And for those of you that I haven't gotten the pleasure to meet yet, first I look forward to getting to meet you. But yes, you will see me wearing some version of maize and blue when I meet you. Really proud of this school. Like I mentioned, I'm an alum of the program. But what I love about the work that I get a chance to do as an admissions officer is we get to meet so many interesting people from around the world. I love hearing people's stories. I love hearing what they're passionate about. I love getting to know what makes them tick. And then I love seeing our students that go through this program and go on to become alums doing really awesome things. One of the things I'll mention is I think about how much I love this job, and as candidates are now reflecting on what they want to get out of their MBA and where they see themselves after, is I think you really need to give yourself a chance to figure out what you're passionate about. I think people are almost scared to use the words, I'm really passionate about, this particular thing or answering these kinds of questions. But I really think that's a good starting point to assess, what is the path that's going to be right for me post MBA? What's going to get me excited to get up in the morning? I know, like you're an admissions consultant. Like that probably wasn't what you wrote in your Wharton essays, just
No.
like I didn't write admissions officer and leading admissions at a great school like Michigan Ross. But, you have to have your eye open for those opportunities. And if you don't have that true sense of what it is that drives you and gets you really excited and motivated, you're going to miss those opportunities when they come by. And now is a good time to start as you're reflecting on which MBA program and experience is going to be best positioning you.
Great. And whether this is COVID related or economy related or not COVID related, what are some changes that you're envisioning or that you're looking forward to on campus or virtually this fall for the school?
Yeah, this has been a huge focus. Obviously, we've gone really deep into the summer here as an admissions team where we're normally focused fully on recruiting the next class. We have been in a hybrid role ourselves of both engaging candidates who are going to be starting in school this fall, as well as those who are going to be applying to school to start next fall. But in terms of what I'm looking forward to, is what's happening on campus, is that I think this virtual environment is truly going to lend itself to a lot of innovation. I've been talking to our program office team about some of the things that we're going to be offering around How do we build community and connect students with one another through, in our case, it's going to be a hybrid world. So we're going to be offering classes partially in person for those who are able to be in Ann Arbor, as well as virtual for those who maybe aren't going to be able to get here on time or who need a little bit of extra time for health or other reasons. So it is going to be a partially virtual, world that we're entering in this coming year. But I think the opportunity to use technology to be able to connect people with one another, or expanding capacity for opportunities that otherwise would have had a capacity limit in an in-person environment. So I'll give you an example. Two of the really exciting experiences that our students have available to them through our Leadership Center. One is called the Leadership Crisis Challenge, which is a 24-hour crisis simulation where you're part of an executive team and the crisis evolves overnight. And you have to respond to, at first, your board of directors and ultimately to people that are charged to be the media, where you're giving your pitch as to how you would lead that company through this crisis. That's normally something that in the real world, only a certain number of people can participate, but our team is actively working on how can we expand capacity for an experience like that. The other one is something called Story Lab, where you learn how to harness the power of your own narrative. How do you convince people and influence people through your voice? And we do a lot of workshops, and those workshops, when done in person, are usually in a smaller capacity. Again, they're looking to expand that capacity so we can include even more people in some of these great experiences. So I'm excited about how this innovation has led us to new opportunities and perhaps expanded opportunities for our students.
Very exciting. And one thing to note, just for folks who are watching this, maybe more so people applying this fall to start next fall. And what's great is, a lot of these new enhancements and opportunities will be there for you when they're beneficial. And then if you're projecting September, October, November of 2021, how much we will need to use this or not is still to be determined. But it's not necessarily everything will have to be virtual, but these are some great opportunities that that folks will have to add to the environment, even if everything is on campus then.
I think that's right. I think that the fact that we're engaging with prospective students virtually right now, what I'll tell you is, I think I've had the opportunity at this point in the season, just a month or two into talking to students who are applying next year, to talk to many more candidates than I would have if I had to travel to a variety of places in person. So that's given us more chance to get to know candidates. It gives candidates more chances, more opportunities throughout the work week to be able to say, well, this time of day works better for me, so I'm going to join in on this virtual session. Whereas if we're in San Francisco or we're in, Bangkok, right? You have to come that day. If you miss that day, that's it, right? We're not going to be there again in person. So, one of the fears that I've been hearing is, gosh, I'm not going to be able to get the chance to visit campuses virtually. What's that going to look like? How can I engage with admissions teams? And, I think that there's going to be even more opportunity to be able to ask the questions, to be able to, there'll be more and more virtual tours and videos and visits and things that people can use. But really talking to the current students, we have over 200 of our student ambassadors listed online. Chat them up, right? Ask them about what life is like in Ann Arbor, what life is like at Ross. They're going to tell you the real deal. And that's really the best way to get to know a program anyways.
Right. And just to echo that, we tell all of our clients, talk to students, talk to many students, well, of course, I'm missing traveling with you. And if last time we were in New York one day,
San Francisco the next
day in February, and now it seems like a whole world ago. But
that's just February. Wow. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, certainly it levels the playing field for people that maybe aren't able to travel. But yes, talk to students. Admissions directors are great to chat with as well, but there are much fewer of them than students.
That's right.
Students know a lot, so certainly chat with them. Tell me, are there any misconceptions about Michigan Ross that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one by far is that I think people feel that they're somehow going to be geographically limited in what their post-MBA outcomes will be, and nothing could be further from the truth. Our students go anywhere. We usually on a regular basis will have, 25% to a third of the class intern on the West Coast, right? We've got a sizable percentage going to the East Coast, the South, globally. New York is by far the #1 metro from which we get inbound students as well as applicants. So I think any conception that you'll somehow have some limitation in your geographic options just isn't true. Probably doesn't surprise candidates that much that our geographic outcomes aren't that different than that of Kellogg's or Booth's, right? So about 20% of our class goes to Chicago, but that's the top destination. So that means 80% are going someplace other than, our number one metro on a post MBA basis. So with almost 60% going into consulting and tech, consultants are all over the place. Tech is, of course, concentrated in certain parts of the country, but great access wherever you're looking to go.
And one other thing, just to add for applicants is, location aside, you can get to where you want to get to. You might not get there right away. My first job was not in the place that I desired to live long term, and here I am now. And so it's easy to move around. And location aside, focus on the job that's right for you, that will prepare you to then be able to move around later on, regardless of.
And I think the jobs of the future are going to have some virtual elements, just like everything else is going to be adjusted as a result. And so I think you need to find the school that's the place at which you're really going to thrive, right? And you're going to have a great experience that's going to be the one that's the right one for you. In Ann Arbor, we're 20 minutes from a major international airport, and that's great when people are traveling all the time. You can easily travel to multiple continents on a direct flight, just 20 minutes outside of Ann Arbor. But importantly, when you are in Ann Arbor, it's just a great environment to learn. You've got the law school across the street, the public policy school across the street, school of information, natural resources. So you're going to have access to graduate students across the campus in a really robust way. And that might be really compelling for you, right? Or, the fact that you don't have to drive to get to the school. You can walk, 10, 15 minutes most. People live within that distance of the school. And so it's a great opportunity to build community because of the environment that we're in. And that's a great fit for so many of our students that say, this is the place I really want to be.
Well, and I was surprised. I was there a couple summers ago with the AGAC conference. It was the first time I had actually ever been to Ann Arbor. Beautiful. I was super impressed. Obviously, very welcoming as always, but had a really great time and got a sense of the community. So, I'm sure there'll be different virtual and sort of video ways for folks to get that sense as well these days. Okay. So, focusing on the application a bit, the maybe fun part or not so fun part, depending on whether you like writing. But this year, Ross was one of a few schools to shorten the MBA application essay requirements. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the driver behind this change, and this is tricky, but any advice that you would have for applicants thinking about how to choose your words wisely. It's harder to write something short than to write something long.
You got it. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we do as an admissions team is we really reflect on the past year to say, did we get what we needed to from applicants? And if not, where were there any gaps? We also, though, take a look at all the parts of our application process and we say, are we getting value from every single part of this process? And so, for example, I'll tell you that a couple years back, we said, do we really need 2 letters of recommendation? What we were finding is that one of the recommenders knew the candidate particularly well, the second recommender maybe a little bit less so. And when you're reading 2 recommendation letters as an admissions committee member, you're trying to gauge who knows the candidate particularly well and then try to evaluate their perspective as you're reviewing the candidacy. And we said, you know what, we really think that there's only one person that knows this candidate particularly well. In some cases, people have 2, but for the most part, everybody's got at least one that they know them very well. So we reduced our recommendation letter from 2 to 1. Similarly, with the essays, we're actually getting what we need to from the essays. And what you'll find, the essays that you're referring to are our short answer essays, where it's, people get a chance to tell me about a time when they were outside of their comfort zone or something unique about them. And the reason we structured those essays the way that we did is it gives candidates the choice to tell us what they want to tell us. We found that there were some other schools that had kind of these long intros to their essay questions, like, we developed this kind of leader that does this, or we believe in this thing. How do you act like this or lead like this, or why do you believe the same things we do? And in my mind, I felt like a candidate might assume that there's a right answer, right? You've written all this stuff up here. There's gotta be 1 or 2 right answers that are the golden nugget. So we took any of those things out that might have led candidates down a particular path or assumed to go down a particular path. And we've opened up those essay questions to say, the rest of your application. What am I not going to know about you? Or what do you want to make sure really comes across? And it is in that choice that we felt like we were really getting to know the candidates. We used to have 3 prompts with 2 options in each. You could pick one of the 2 options. We've moved it to 2 prompts, and we've added 3. You can choose from the 3 prompts. So you still have the same choice. It's frankly still the same prompts. It's just 2 essays instead of 3 in terms of the short answers. And then for our career goals essay, we only ask for your short-term career goals. We used to ask for short-term career goals, long-term career goals, and why Ross. And what we were finding is a few things. One, people would take 80% of the essay to tell us why Ross, which was just pretty much repeating our website back to us. So it's not that it's not important. It's just that we're using these essays to try to get to know the candidate versus having the candidate sort of tell us back who we are. And then when we asked for the long-term career goals, people were largely saying, my short-term career goal is to go into healthcare, and then my long-term career goal is to stay in healthcare and be in an executive role. And I think people were scared to tell us, again, back to what their real passions were of, my short-term career goal is here, but my long-term goal is to be an entrepreneur in this space because I'm really passionate about it. So we do get some of that in your interview, where you get a chance to tell us a little bit more about why Ross, or a little bit more about, your career goals. The short-term career goals really focused on, where do you see yourself starting your journey when you come to Ross? Almost thinking about it as, where do you think your internship search is going to start when you come? The recruiting, as you know, on all campuses at top MBA programs happens almost immediately. And we work over the summer, even before people set foot on campus or join us, helping people get ready for that recruiting process. So the short-term career goal essay questions really designed to help us get an understanding of your thought process behind where do you want to start your journey. And we recognize that might change a little bit when you get into the MBA program, but having some thought behind, in particular, your internship or short-term goal search is really helpful.
And thank you so much, Jen. And that's a really good point about the interview, because sometimes when people, feel like they don't see why X school is that not important, but seeing someone answer that live is probably a little bit more helpful than reading it online. Anyway.
You get the chance to see kind of the energy behind the conviction, or just the way that people have thought through it a little bit when, that doesn't fully come across in the writing.
Yeah. Great. Is there anything that you wish applicants would do differently when applying? And this could be kind of open-ended, so it could be during the research, during the engagement, during the interview, anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I mean, I mentioned a little bit earlier about sort of people articulating what they're passionate about and what their real interests are. I think people skip that, because it's not like a school is saying, like, do this prep work in advance of starting the essays, or think about this. Right. I mean, we'll give those tips on panels and things, but it's not like something that you're submitting right to us of the pre-work that you might consider doing. But it's not just what you're passionate about. One of the pieces of advice that I usually give candidates is to reflect on their current work experience, and to think about, within that work experience, when are they really energized? Like, what's happening around them? For a lot of candidates, the reason they're getting their MBAs is because they're looking to switch careers. And we have 90% of our students are, switching either function or industry, if not both, after school. So this might only be something you get a chance to do 5% of the time. And the rest of the 95% of the time, you're not quite a fan of all that work. But when you get to work on that deal, or you get to work on the strategic project, or you get to present in these ways or work on these things, you get really energized. You have to know what that is. When is it that you're energized? What's happening? Are you working by yourself? Are you working on a team? Are you working on a particular type of project? Because post-MBA jobs are more similar than they are different. And I'm talking across the spectrum of whether you're a consultant or a banker, you go into tech, and they're all looking for highly analytical people who are smart, who are going to lead, who are going to navigate amid ambiguity. But it's that, how do you maximize the thing that you really like to do and that you're really energized by, and how do you package that in your post-MBA role where you get a chance to do that more? Because the MBA experience isn't going to change who you are or what you value. It's going to change you're going to get a toolkit of things to be able to leverage. I should adjust the value piece. Of course, you're going to learn about new people from around the world. You're going to learn about new concepts, and it may make you question and delve into things in a little bit different way. But what you're truly driven by isn't going to change. It's just the toolkit that you're going to get that surrounds that experience that you're going to be able to apply in your future role.
And then it's figuring out how many parts of the toolkit are you going to try to learn in a short period of time,
You
which is
got it.
the biggest
Focus.
challenge.
Right. Focus.
Um, so, I mean, this is sort of similar to the last question, but any advice that you have for applicants about learning about Ross or just sort of in general, things that are maybe not found on the website? Everyone's going to read the website, of course. If not, they have no business applying. But
Yeah.
then what else?
You're right. It's so hard for any school to like really highlight the energy of the school or what is what that experience really looks like. So I would say it's everything from our new impact studio where students can come into a space and be able to solve really challenging social problems. We're bringing ideas forward to think about how to alleviate poverty, how to think about access to clean water. And it's not just business school students that get to engage in that, it's policy students or social work students. So really thinking about these complex social problems with a multidisciplinary lens. We've invested a significant amount of money in a design thinking studio that allows students to come forward and to bring those ideas forward and to think about what could be if they partner with these people across these disciplines. So like that's something that I get really excited about, and I love hearing what the students' experiences are from it. There's something called Ross Open Road, and some of these experiences we'll see how they live on in the virtual world.
Yeah.
I'm still picturing this in-person
Right,
landscape,
right.
but even Ross Open Road has got its own virtual elements to it. And what it is you work with a different social entrepreneur each week, typically in between the end of the first year and before your internship starts. So a picture over the course of 4 weeks, working with 4 different social entrepreneurs around the country on different challenges that they're solving. So mini consulting projects with a social innovation lens. And then we also have a big donation from a man named Mr. Pinkert focused on healthcare. So these are full rides for 15 students who are interested in healthcare that are going to have access to incredible mentors, access to people from our health system and other health focused disciplines across campus. As well as their own cohort of people that are really strong in that space. So a lot of just things that pop up regularly, innovations that I think are coming forward that the websites are always going to lag. So the students are truly the best way to get to know more about these experiences. And the way that we've structured our student ambassador webpage is that you can filter by interest and the clubs that students are in and what they're involved with professionally, where they're from, to find people who meet your interests. And one of my pieces of advice is if you did nothing other than read the bios of all the student ambassadors listed on our website, you'd get a really good idea of who's at Ross. But from any of those websites, you can just click and drop them a note and say, hey, I'd love to chat with you to hear a little bit more about your experience. That is by far the best way to get to know the school.
And students follow up. Students get back to you. Students are chatting, which is very exciting and not something that we see at every school.
Yeah,
so
it's
so
something we're
that's
really proud of. Our community is incredible.
yeah, great. How about international applicants? I mean, I feel like when I first thought of this question, the news changes every day. But any advice you would have for international applicants now, thinking of starting in next fall? How should they be thinking about immigration and COVID and all of that? How do you help
Yeah.
people sort of think through everything?
It's been particularly difficult for international students lately, and I think it's always top of mind for international students as to what type of experience they're going to have in terms of the investment that they're making and then what the outcomes are going to be. So what I can speak to, at least initially, is our international students have incredible outcomes. They do very, very well, and I'm now reflecting on the class of 2019. 2020 data is not out yet, but I'm getting good vibes, from what I'm hearing from them as well. But when I look at the class of 2019, they actually had a higher job placement rate at graduation than our American students did, partly because they had to lock in jobs earlier, right? They wanted that
Right.
confidence that they were going to have an opportunity to be able to lock in that job. And they're going to literally, if you take a look at our international students, the top companies that they go to are all the traditional top companies that people ask about, right? So top consulting or banking or finance and tech. So the international students historically have done very, very well, and that's continued, over the course of this year. As we look forward, though, which I know a lot of the questions are around, what's the landscape going to be like? What are the jobs going to be like? What's the economy going to be like? And just the general openness of the U.S. in particular to international students. One thing I can say is that as schools, we're controlling the elements that we are able to control, which is to say we're trying to create the best possible experience we have that's inclusive, engaging, and allowing our international students an opportunity to thrive. But not just on our campuses, things that are happening in DC, our schools are coming forward and saying, here's what we need to be true for our international students, and here's what we believe the right thing is for the government to do to support that. So there's a lot of unknowns, as you know, in the coming year. And I think that there's not going to be a school that's going to be able to say, here's exactly what you can expect, 2 years after you graduate. I wish we knew. But what I will tell you is schools like Ross continue to do everything in our power to make sure we're creating a great experience. And our alumni have stepped up incredibly. They've come forward to say, how can I help? Who can I mentor? What kind of guidance would be helpful? How can we help to get people to my company to come work here? So my advice for candidates who are applying now, looking to start fall 2021, is we want you, right? We want great international talent. It adds so much value to our communities. There will be space for great talents. And while we're controlling what we control, you can control what you can control, which is putting forward a great application and just letting us know who you are, what your passions are, and what that will look like. And we can promise to be as upfront as we can as things evolve. We want to make sure we, are putting people in good situations.
And the base of your answer, I sort of guessed that, but it is interesting to hear you talk through it, because I'm in the middle of speaking tours where I'm a panelist about applying during COVID, and I think I'm doing a bunch of different cities, 4 or 5 different cities, where I'm answering the same question for folks. And the honest answer is, nobody really knows exactly what will happen, but a lot of these things that you're hearing about, again, this is July. It's July right now. Depending on when you watch this, maybe it'll be later, maybe it'll be 2021, but there's a lot of time until things will settle. So, move on. And if this is the right time for you, this is the right time for you. So you're investing in your future, and try not to get sidetracked by articles that you read. Maybe don't read articles.
Yeah.
My mom always used to tell me, believe half of what you read and none of what you hear. So
yeah, there's so much. And I think to your point, there's such a financial uptick, right? If coming to get your MBA now makes sense for you in 2 years, that return is going to begin, right? You're going to be in a well-positioned role. And, if you're talking about the classes starting 2021, they're going to be graduating 2023. That's a good few years away from right now. So we'll see how things shake out.
Right. So anything else that you want to tell us about Ross as far as what the future looks like? I know we already chatted about this to some extent, but anything else that would be valuable for our listeners?
One of the things that's been really interesting is just the conversations that are happening at schools. And I realize that as a prospective candidate, you're trying to sort of read the tea leaves a little bit, and websites can kind of look pretty similar, which is one of the big reasons why we suggest talking to students and people who are in the community to kind of get the real story and the real, passions that come across when you talk to the people. But, one of the things I've been really impressed by in terms of our engagement over the last few months is just how quickly the dean has kind of mobilized people. We've got folks on the ground really thinking about, what is the fall going to look like? What do we need to do to continue to add value? How can we continue to have students at the center of this conversation to make sure we're doing everything that we can for them? And so I think, if anything, some of the communications that are happening, the innovations that we're hoping to deliver, that spirit will continue into other elements of the program. If you learn best by doing, Michigan Ross is the place to be. We've been doing hands-on learning forever. A full quarter of your first year is spent on a consulting-like engagement called MAP, where you get a chance to pick a project that could be at a company. We headed on 6 out of 7 continents last year and across many different functions and industries. You get to essentially rank which projects you want to work on, and you get assigned to a project. Most get in their top 3, 4, 5 projects that they rank. So in particular, for those of you that are career switchers that are saying, I'd really like another shot at being able to get experience in this industry, this function, or with this kind of company, it's like a second internship. And so, hands-on learning is very pervasive throughout the experience. We've got more student-led investment funds than any other school. The Impact Studio that I mentioned earlier, this MAP project, we have something called the Living Business Leadership Experience, which is you get to run a real business while you're in school, as well as a huge entrepreneurship center that just got $20 million a couple years back to continue to fund it. that includes 4 entrepreneurs in residence who are there to advise both students and alums on their businesses. So, I think the businesses, the companies that you guys are looking at are going to require talent that's really not only smart, but very adaptable. I think adaptability is going to be critical, both in your MBA applications as well as after. How are you going to navigate complexities and things as the world changes around you? And we believe that learning by doing, where we're taking you and saying, go try it, right? While you're in a safe environment, push yourself, push your classmates around you. But we then need to wrap a really supportive network around you too, so that you feel comfortable taking risks, potentially failing, learning from your failures or mistakes and building from them. That's a big part of who we are as a school. So I see that essentially continuing, and if anything, double down on hands-on learning, just because I really think it's what's going to best position our students, but also it's what we're hearing from tech firms and everybody else around. I need people that are going to be able to adapt, not just people who are going to come in and look for the textbook, right?
Great. Super, super helpful advice. So thank you. I think this will be extremely useful for all of our viewers and our clients. Anything else we haven't talked about today that's worth noting? What else?
Yeah, I think the best next step is for you to, on your own time, be able to navigate schools. And, when you're making that spreadsheet to assess which schools are going to be the best fit, make sure you have a place on that spreadsheet where you're tracking, obviously, who you're talking to, not just who you're talking to and what they're talking to you about, like, oh, check the box, this particular healthcare program exists, or this other experience I can have. But were you energized by that conversation? When you got off the phone with that person, did you want to learn more about the school? Or were you just doing it sort of out of obligation of, I should talk to X number of people?
Right.
Because it's, if you it's the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth person that you ultimately talk to. And if you're hearing some level of consistency about the experience, that's probably telling you a little bit more about what the real true north is for that school. That consistency is going to be important. So tracking the folks that you're talking to, as well as how you're engaged and feeling as a result of that conversation. We also, in addition to the student ambassadors, have got an awesome podcast called Business Beyond Usual. Super refreshing podcast. Our students talk about everything from life in Ann Arbor to how they got a job in tech to how they started their business while they were in school to dating, right? So everything in between. And it's truly the student voice that comes alive there, which I think makes it a really valuable tool as you're getting to know the school.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, super, super helpful advice. And yeah, just one thing to add on, not that this is, we're have this here today to listen to my advice, but yeah, talking to multiple people is super, super helpful. Because I can't tell you how many times I've heard from someone, and I talked to someone today who said, I'm not interested in X program because of Y. And I said, have you talked to at least 5 people? Because that doesn't sound accurate based on what I know about the place. And so don't have 1 or 2 conversations with any school and say, okay, this is the right place or the wrong place.
Yeah, and I think you can spread them out too, right? So it's not like, at each stage in this process, you're going to have new and different questions. You're going to be in this exploratory phase, and then you're going to apply. And after you've applied, you're going to learn about new things. And then, hopefully, fingers crossed, right? Once you get in, you're going to have maybe even a different set of questions and things to think about. So, there's a way to space out those conversations a bit to try to get the most from them, and maybe even to revisit some of them, 6 months after you've talked to somebody and you've got a different perspective on that school that you talked to them about. So we look forward to getting to know everyone through this process.
Great. Well, Diana, thank you so much for all of your time. Incredibly valuable advice. Great to see you as always. I wish it were on the road at a restaurant somewhere, but here we are. And certainly look forward to having you again soon. So thank you very much. And for folks watching, if you want to learn more about Michigan Ross, as Diana mentioned, obviously interact with students, visit their website, watch videos, so many opportunities for you to learn more about the great things that they're doing at Ross. If you want to learn more about Personal MBA Coach and working with us, then just submit an inquiry on our webpage. You can email me at scott@personalmbacoach.com, and we'd be more than happy to chat with you further. So
excellent.
Thank you so much. Great to see you again.
Good to see
Best
you
of luck,
too.
health and happiness, and we'll be in touch soon.
Be well. Thanks, Scott. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.